Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we're going to do a character guide on Clouded Darkness. So Clouded Darkness just dropped with their FR and C90 Awakening. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the artifacts, the spheres, we'll do a showcase with the kit, and we're going to begin by just going over Clouded Darkness's calls and explain when you would want to use them or what they would be used for, right? So the calls basically will mimic the, I think this is actually the 35 and then the LD, right? So let's go ahead and take a look here. They're not the craziest. So the wide angle particle beam, really the main reason you'd want to use that, it's just like a one-turn AoE delay. So if you want just a little one-turn AoE delay, otherwise it's just a pretty basic attack, right? So nothing too crazy. There's no special effects it gives the caller. Literally you just use that for the one-turn delay. The LD does have a little bit more in it. So what the LD is going to do, it's going to give the person who calls with it, they're going to get a few little buffs. They're going to get attack and crit damage up, and then they're also going to get an HP damage up. And then the other thing that, or HP damage up, the other thing that's really nice about this though is it will unbreak all of the enemies. So if you need like a really clutch unbreak for some reason to get extra breaks in, you definitely can use that to get a free break off. But this isn't a call that I use a ton. It's a little bit more situational, but if you have limited calls and like I said, you need a little bit of delay, you need a little bit of unbreak, there are some decent stats you can give the caller with it. Definitely it's a call you can use, right? So let's go ahead and look at Cloud of Darkness's artifacts here. So artifacts are pretty basic. I would say you want to go attack 108 and you want to go with the C50 here. So Cloud of Darkness, for those of you unfamiliar, I would classify as a damage dealer. Like that's pretty much what their role is. They do a lot of delay. So delay and dealing damage is a big part of their kit, and then they also have follow-ups and counters in their kit. So they actually have quite a bit that they can do there, right? So attack, I would think, is going to be your main focus here as a DPS character. So if you do attack 108 and the C50 is going to add more max brave and attack. I would say a secondary option is attack 108, max brave 330. That's a pretty standard recommendation there, right? And then on the spheres, the spheres are actually pretty darn easy for Cloud of Darkness. Really, you can't go wrong as long as you're buffing the right stats and you're fulfilling the conditions. So mine aren't like the best in slot. So I've got like Cyan here, which does attack and brave limit. Clouds does brave damage on crit. And then their own, which is magic attack. So really, what you want to buff here is you want to do brave damage, attack, or magic attack. So whatever spheres that you have, Cloud of Darkness does not do weakness damage, but Cloud of Darkness does do a lot of breaking. So a lot of the A spheres will say when you break or attack a broken target, Cloud of Darkness is very good at hitting those. Attack and brave damage, I think Jack's sphere is a good sphere that could hit that. I think Aerith is just a really good solid like magic attack sphere if you want to do like a fat 15% magic attack or something like that. Or just any attack spheres. The A slot is full of like decent spheres you can put on Cloud of Darkness. So just go ahead, look at your box, find 3 that kind of fits what Cloud of Darkness does, where you're buffing either magic attack, or brave damage. That's really all you need to do there, so pretty basic. So let's go ahead and hop into the showcase. And what I'm going to do here is we're just hopping into the first Shinryu. I am doing a very specific team comp here. I've got Charlotta just to get me in the force time quickly, and then Sephiroth just to show you how Sephiroth combos really well with Cloud of Darkness, a character that likes to break, right? So let's go ahead and hop in and do that. So something that Cloud of Darkness has in their kit, they have the break, unbreak, free turn mechanic. So basically if they break with their LD buff on, they will get a free turn. But you can't do it consecutive back-to-back turns. But if you say interrupt the turn with the AA, then you can, right? Now the big thing to look at with Cloud of Darkness is if you look above their head, they have 0 stacks. This is the darkness the darkness buff, right? This has a inherent max of 5 stacks, but there are some attacks that can allow you to exceed the maximum stacks. It's very important to watch this because the 35 CP wide angle particle beam, basically if you get 5 stacks of it, it's going to become 0 form particle beam, which is like one of the more important attacks that Cloud of Darkness has. I'll use wide angle particle beam to start just to show you. But wide angle particle beam does an AoE delay. So you're going to see a couple of things here. So we'll use it. Okay. It's going to do an AoE delay and then we get the break delay as well. So we got kind of like 2 delays there. Now, wide angle particle beam, you typically only want to use it if you're at 0 darkness stacks, or if you just desperately need an AoE delay. If you're desperate and you have to have it, you can use it. The reason why you don't want to use this above 0 is because whether you're at 1 to 4 stacks, the darkness buff really doesn't change anything. I mean, it does provide its own little stat boost that will go up a little bit, but it's really, you either have it at, the 0 to 4 range, or you have it at 5, right? And 5 is really where you want it to be. So what happens is if you use wide angle particle beam, it will subtract 4 from it. So no matter what you're at, if you're at 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it basically is going to put you back down to 0. So that's why if you are going to use it for the AoE delay, you want to use it at 0, because then you're not losing any stacks. What'll happen is when you get to 5 stacks, wide angle particle beam is going to turn into 0 form particle beam, which is a free, it's a free skill use. And it does a really fat 3-turn delay on one enemy, okay? So how do you get those stacks? Basically through doing all of Cloud of Darkness's other attacks, you'll get that up. So I'll show you the other trick here. This is just with a very common thing, is you saw that we broke the enemy, we got a free turn, right? Now, if I were to break the enemy again, back to back, I would not get a free turn. But if I interrupt it with the AA, and a lot of, like, Lightning has this, a lot of these, like, free turn re-break characters have this, they have, like, a break reset AA. So what happens is, if I press the AA, it's an instant turn, but it's basically going to unbreak the enemy, and now that interrupted my cycle. So if I break again now, Clouded Darkness will get another free turn. So let's go ahead and use the 15, which is called Insulating Appendages. So what this does is it gives her a basic buff called Annulling Power. It's just an attack and max brave up. And then basically this buff makes it so that Cloud of Darkness, if they were to take HP damage, they do basically a brave damage counter. Now, if you have the LD buff up, which you typically will, there will also be an HP dump that comes with it. So just know that Cloud of Darkness has inherent built-in counters, but it's only on HP damage, so it's kind of specific. So it's not going to be like, you don't want to run Cloud of Darkness in a situation where you'd want to run Auron, where like you're banking on the counter damage, because HP damage isn't as common as just brave damage is, right? So just keep in mind that I think of Cloud of Darkness's counters as just like an extra bonus, but it's not really like a feature of their kit, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now on Insulating Appendages, it adds 1 to the darkness stacks, but since we broke, it gets an extra stack. So it actually did 2. So you see the overhead there now is at 2 stacks, right? What I'm actually going to do to demo the rest of the kit, I'm just going to hop into burst phase, because I want to get the burst buff up anyways to show you how that works. So let's go ahead and just go into burst phase, and I can just freely show up. But I wanted to show you that little trick there with getting the instant free turns, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is, let's go ahead, let's pop the LD. So what the LD is going to do, it's going to unbreak and then break the enemies. So the LD is especially good to press if both enemies are broken and you want to get a break, right? So we did that. Now coming with the LD, it does recover a skill use of her skill 1, so that helps them out for longevity, right? And then they get another unique buff called Balance of Ruin. So this Balance of Ruin is, it does 2 things. One is it makes the counters better, so you get the HP dumps on the counters. But this is also what enables Cloud of Darkness to get the free turns after breaking. So if you ever let that buff fall off, like you're not going to get your free turns anymore. So you pretty much are using the LD either when you need to upkeep the buff or when you want to unbreak the enemies. Those are the 2 main places you're going to use the LD, right? So we've got that kind of set up there. And then the other thing it did is you're going to notice that my stacks went to 7 and it turned red. So the stacks will turn red when it's at max. Technically 5 is the max, but the LD and the FR, which I'll talk about the FR later, but they both give 5 stacks and they can exceed the cap. So what happens is now is I can go to 7 and I'm above the cap. And so what you're going to notice now is that 35 CP attack turned into 0 form particle beam, and it's green, which means it's a free skill use. So what's going to happen is I can pop this on an enemy, and I'm going to lose 5 stacks of my overhead, but it's going to do a really big 3-turn delay. Like, it's a fat delay on that single enemy, right? So that's really, really good to get the big delay there. You can see now I'm back down to 2. You don't want to touch wide angle particle beam now because I'm going to lose those 2 stacks, right? Let's go ahead and pop the EX so you guys can see that. So what the EX is going to do, it's going to just do a Brave HP attack as you saw right there. It does do a 1-turn delay on the target that you hit. So you're noticing most of her attacks, or most of their attacks do delay, right? And then we get a Flood of Darkness buff. It's basically going to be attack and brave Brave retention on that. And then there's also a poison, an eye brave poison on the enemies from the EX. Now the EX does do a +2 to the darkness stacks. So you see it went up to 4. If I had gotten a break on that, it would have done 3 and I would have went up to 5. So that's good to note as well. The other thing to note is Clouded Darkness does have a transformed HP and Brave attack. So you'll see we have Toying Appendages and Uncanny Beam. Basically, Toying Appendages will do 2 turns, or it'll add 2 to the darkness stacks. So typically, I'm really usually not touching the transformed Brave and HP attacks. But when I do want like extra stacks of the darkness buff, you sometimes do want to press Toying Appendages, because it's going to guaranteed get you 2 stacks. If you break, you get 3. Whereas Uncanny Beam is only going to be 1 stack, and I think you get 2 stacks if you break. So there is some use to that. But as long as you've got your skill uses, you really don't have to use those that often, right? But there is some strategy in using that, right? So now I've basically shown off everything, right? So what we'll do is we'll get the BT effect up. So let's go ahead and so I was gonna say we can't show it, but we'll do the 15. Once again, this will give us a stack of our darkness buff. So now we're at 5 stacks. So now coming out of the burst, well, I was gonna say we could have it. We got another 0 form particle beam, so let's just go ahead and pop that off right away. And then that's going to do a fat delay on that enemy. So Clouded Darkness, like when you build them up right, you can get a lot of delay. So let's go ahead and use the BT. Now this is not a green BT, which is why I had to do the entire burst phase. Clouded Darkness is a character I do recommend if you really want to go for, or like you're going to use them a lot. Getting them green is worth it, because the BT effect, what you're going to find is a very good effect that you might just want to pop and have at the beginning of the fight without using your whole burst phase. And you may want to burst phase with another character in conjunction. Now that Clouded Darkness's burst effect is up, basically they are going to do link attacks, which is basically where anytime I do an attack, Clouded Darkness will follow up with their own attack. So now that we kind of have that all set up, let's go ahead with Charlotta and let's just get into our force time. So let's go ahead and just do this like crazy. Now you're going to notice Clouded Darkness only follows up if we actually damage the enemy. So these kind of just Brave Gain attacks, they're not going to trigger the link attacks. But that's fine. We just want to get into our, once again, into our force time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do Charlotta's BT. And then we're going to use Sephiroth's BT so we can see how that's going to operate with the force time, right? We'll do this because it's free. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and keep charging up. I know this part of the video is always a little bit boring, but at least it gets me into the force quickly so that we can get it going. And I can kind of talk about it a little bit. So basically the force effect from Clouded Darkness, once again, it's going to give them 5 stacks of that darkness buff. And once again, will exceed the cap. So whatever you're at, it'll exceed that, give you 5 stacks no matter what. And then the big thing with it is it's got a lot of different conditions for raising the HP up, right? So basically, if on your turn you do a delay attack, it'll do 50%. That's the biggest singular jump that you get. But the other thing that comes from it is if you do magic brave damage, or you delay an enemy with break. So if you do magic brave damage, you get 5%. If you delay an enemy with break, you get 20%. And this works off turn with the follow-up. So this is where we're going to do a combo with Sephiroth to show you how we can get some off-turn boost to that, right? We'll go ahead and do this, and we should be just about there. Pretty darn close. Pretty darn close to maxed out here. Yeah, we're almost there. I really want to get to 100 by the time... Clouded Darkness, we can do some break, get free turns if we need to get up to it. But let's just do some AAs here just to pump that gauge up a little bit more. We'll just do 2 AAs here. Then we'll pop the BT effect because that should put a nice charge into it also. So let's go ahead and pop the BT attack here. Okay, so we'll get that off. I'm trying to remember, well, we'll see it when we do the FR, but I'm trying to remember who... Oh yeah, the partner in the attack is X-Death. Which that's pretty fitting, right? They're like villain characters from the older Final Fantasy games. Okay, so there was the follow-up there. So that was the first time we saw it. So here's the other thing that happens is Cloud of Darkness, because they break during the off turn, that counts as them breaking, and they'll actually jump up and get a free turn from that. So Cloud of Darkness does steal turns. This is actually very good for their own force time because you want them doing the delays to get the big 50%, right? So I'm actually okay if Cloud of Darkness does not do anything crazy here. So let's go ahead and I don't want to steal another turn. So let's just do a 15 attack here. That's fine. And then, yep, and they do the additional on their own attack as well. Okay, so now with Sephiroth here, and the gauge is just about there. Let's go ahead and do the AA. Okay, and then we're going to do the burst effect with Sephiroth. So Sephiroth's burst effect, if you're not familiar with it, basically while it's up, after every action, the enemy's Brave just gets reset to 1. So if they're broken, it unbreaks and puts it to 1. If they have capped Brave, it'll just set it to 1. It's very, very good. And so since the enemies are always going to be unbroken now, we can break every attack with Cloud of Darkness and really push that force gauge up. So you can see here, they're going to go to 1. And then Cloud of Darkness is here with 100%. So this is perfect. So let's go ahead and let's do the force attack. Yep, right here. Void Form Particle Beam. So let's go ahead and pop that off. So this is inherently going to do a 1-turn enemy delay. Just do a bunch of damage. 5 stacks of darkness. So we're going to have a couple of Zero Form Particle Beams we can use because of this. And then once again, when we delay, we should get 50%. And then off-turn breaking. Let's see here. Yep. And then, yeah, so you can see there was just off-turn. That was just off-turn a Magic Brave attack. So we got 5% for that. And then if we break with it, we get another 20%. So what we want to do with Cloud of Darkness now is we want to do something that delays. So conveniently, we've got Zero Form Particle Beam. So let's do that. That is going to delay. And that should give us 50%. Yep, 56 in fact. So we got that. Because we're also doing Magic Brave damage. And then there, on the additional, we got another 25. So you can see we can really build it up, right? So now we want to do something else that delays. And once again, we're breaking constantly. So we're getting all these effects. Now the EX does also delay. So we can just pop the EX here since we have it. I could do another Zero Form. Actually, I probably should have done the Zero Form first, because this would have given us darkness stacks that we now wasted, right? But yeah, there you go, 56%. The off-turn break, we're going to get another 25. So we're getting really big gains with this particular combo, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do Zero Form this time. Yeah, very nice damage there, 56. And then once again, we're doing that. And because these breaks are happening off-turn, we are getting the extra turn every single time. So with this Sephiroth combo, we literally can just keep spamming this. So without even using a burst phase, Cloud of Darkness is just keeping control here and pushing the gauge up very well, right? So now what I could do here, I think using the LD wouldn't be bad because it's going to guarantee give me a break, but I'm going to get the 5 stacks. And so now I'm going to get some Zero Forms back. Oh, that one though, that one didn't do an actual delay. So that's why that one didn't pump it up as much. Oh, but you know what? Our burst effect ran out. So here's the thing. If your Cloud of Darkness is green, you get more. The burst buff does last longer. So mine was only 5 turns. Normally it will last 8 turns. So yes, Cloud of Darkness will be spamming turns during that. But then the buff is going down. So now we don't have that buff. So now the follow-ups aren't coming. And that's why we lost the combo. Which is totally fine. But you kind of see how that works. And how the gauge gets pushed up, right? So let's go ahead here with Charlotta. I mean, we can at least break and do Magic Brave damage, right? So that'll give us a little bit here. So we'll do this. Oh, except that was a gravity attack, so we didn't break. We only got the 5% from the Brave damage, which is fine. And then Sephiroth won't really be able to do much with it, but that's fine also. So let's go ahead and let's just do this to get a double break. Okay, so we got 20% for breaking, right? So we're at least getting that with Sephiroth. Okay, so let's do it again. 20% for breaking. We want to get the Cloud of Darkness, though. There we go. Now, Cloud of Darkness will get an extra turn after this. So let's go ahead, and we've only got a few turns left here. So definitely let's Zero Form here. And you can see the enemies are just, like, non-existent. Like, we've delayed them so much, like, who knows when they're going to get a turn. Because we're just delaying with everything, right? So now we got another turn from break. Let's definitely do another delay attack here. EX sounds good. That's got a delay in it. So you can see we very easily push the gauge up like to a very decent number. And we're doing a lot of damage. So not that bad, right? Sure, let's chuck the staff and we'll finish off the force time with that. So anyways, guys, there you go. That's Cloud of Darkness. Obviously, there are ways to refine and like perfect the way you play Cloud of Darkness. I would say as long as you understand the way the kit works, if you really like this character, like practice using them, figure out what's going to be like the best rotations to do your attacks. But it's really like you got to manage that darkness overhead and make sure you're aware of that. And the big thing, like I said, is don't use that wide angle particle beam if you're above 0 if you don't have to, because you don't want to waste your stacks, okay? So anyways, guys, hope this guide helps. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.